Hey, what's going on, Danny? How you doing?
I'm doing all right. How are you?
I'm chilling, man.
Happy Sunday.
Happy Sunday. You doing anything this weekend?
You know what? I'm always just here working with clients, taking meetings, planning for the week. So no, I did not. Hanging out with the kiddos and enjoying the weather.
Okay. Hey, for everybody that's watching, I know y'all noticed that Seth ain't here. He's a little bit under the weather. So y'all send that man a shout out when y'all get a chance, right?
Happy belated, by the way. What did you do for your birthday?
I hung out, went out to go eat and then went dancing with the wife. I had a really good time. We had a really good time hanging out. But let's talk about what's going on with this show. What you read a little bit about it. What do you think?
You said one more time?
I said you read a little bit about what we got going on and our next guest. What do you think so far?
I'm excited because I am in my transition. I am reinventing myself and transitioning as becoming a new mom in the past 2, 3, 4 years now. And, trying to pivot and start a business. So I'm excited about the conversation with reinventing yourself and taking pivots in life and giving your self permission to do so. So I'm excited about today's guest speaker.
Yeah, I'm really interested to see how this conversation about recalibration and how important it is for not only us, but our listeners as well. So when you guys, as you guys are listening to what's going on, please make sure you comment what you think and ask questions to our next guest, who I'm about to introduce right now. Our next guest is a very special guest. His name, Dr. Williams, right? Right there in the title, Dr. Williams already commands respect, but he is also a retired Chief Master Sergeant in the United States Air Force. He's currently the Executive Director for a Christian Community Center in East St. Louis and the Senior Pastor for a new Christian Fellowship Church at Fairview Heights. Now, this is a guy that's going to be able to talk to us about recalibration and how to pivot because he's had to do that in his life and has been able to succeed at high levels. So everybody, please welcome Dr. Williams.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. How y'all doing?
What's going on, Doc?
Welcome.
Thank you. Excited to be here.
How was your weekend so far?
Oh, busy.
Yeah.
Sometimes I don't know if I have a weekend or not.
Okay.
That's just how it flows.
So I gave you a little bit of an introduction, but why don't you go ahead and tell the audience a little bit about yourself?
Again, my name is Jeff Williams, originally from Baltimore, Maryland. I'll start there. When I graduated from high school, I was an honor student and everything, but I had no clue on what I wanted to do after high school. Didn't feel like going to college because I was really tired of school, believe it or not. So I entered the military at the age of 17, and the rest was history. When I look back on it, going into the Air Force was one of the best decisions I was able to make. Again, I was not a troubled kid or anything of that nature. I just didn't really know what I wanted. Right. Unlike today, where I make sure I mentor young people and give them options, I really wasn't clear on what I wanted to do. But when I went into military, I went in as medical administration, and then I switched over to another career field, which is paralegal. And I spent about 23 years in the paralegal career field.
Okay. So, Dr. Williams, I think your story resonates with a lot of people that were in the military because when you think back, a lot of us really didn't know what we were going to get into, but we joined. You made the most out of your opportunity, maximized, and made it all the way to Chief Master Sergeant, top 2% in the Air Force. So congratulations on that. 1%. I'm sorry. Top 1% in the Air Force. Hey, so after achieving those heights, right, and on your way upon retirement, what was the next step for you? What was your mindset like as you was getting your DD-214 and heading out those gates?
Well, that's a good question because I was at another crossroad. I recall at my retirement ceremony, I was standing on the stage and I was just speaking to the audience. I said, I don't know what lies ahead, but I am excited about the unknown because I knew God would be there, whatever it was. So immediately when I retired, I was just sitting at home like, okay, what's next? What's next? I started my own consulting business,
Okay.
called JCW Consultants. And the purpose of that was to really help organizations develop better leaders. My focus was on followership. That's something we learned in the military, followership, but it wasn't something that was talked about a lot. So that was my little niche. So I ended up writing a book called Leadership Followership 360 and did that for a few years before I shifted gears once again.
Okay. So how was that role in the consulting world though? What did you learn most from that?
It's not for the faint at heart. Because I say that because in the military, it's almost like it was a very secure environment. We really didn't have to wonder how we was going to get our next meal, or we had a roof over our heads. Not in the Air Force anyway. But once you retire, it's like, okay, you have to get out there and hustle. It's just not going to come to you. So that was a learning curve for me, because I'm not a big salesperson. And even as a solo entrepreneur, I had to wear so many different hats. But my military upbringing really provided me with the training I need to be multifaceted.
Okay.
So that was very helpful in that endeavor.
Thank you, Dr. Williams, for being here and gracing the stage. I know from firsthand experience that it's always easier to land on your feet when you have a roadmap or you have mentorship. And so as you were navigating your way into the life of a civilian, did you happen to come across any mentors or any strategic plan that helped kind of guide your steps and help you land on your feet?
I have to be transparent with you. I didn't have somebody who grabbed me by the hand and said, okay, Jeff, this is what you're going to do next, this, and this. A lot of it was based on, again, I would say my intuitiveness. Some of the things I learned in the military, I was able to transfer that as I was navigating. I met some wonderful people. They probably didn't realize they were mentoring me, because I watched people. Yeah, how they move, how they navigate, what to do, what not to do. Because sometimes, unfortunately, I would say, hey, would you be my mentor? And the mentor ended up becoming jealous, envious. It's like, that's not what I envisioned, but that's okay. And so I just made the best of the opportunities that were presented to me and just kept it moving that way.
Okay. So as you went on to this life with the entrepreneurship with the consulting firm, when did you know, hey, it's time for me to pivot onto something else?
Well, while I was doing that, I ended up being called to pastor a church, a New Christian Fellowship Church in Fairview Heights. I didn't think my response was now. I said, I just started this consulting business. Come on, Lord. Come on, give me a break. And so I started pastoring a small church here in Fairview Heights. Now, again, I like being transparent. I envisioned walking into a church that was already established, was big, booming choir, this, that, and the other. I just walk in, it's all set.
Yeah.
That was not the case.
At all. Build it up a little bit.
Yeah, it was the ebbs and flows of ministry. It was truly like a roller coaster ride. That also just helped develop my leadership skills even more. The things I learned in the military, I truly had to put into play in this church environment. And so people say, you volunteer to be a pastor? Absolutely not. It was truly a calling. And I'm afraid to tell God no. So
yeah,
here I am 14 years later, still pastoring the church. Yeah. How about that?
So I hope that it's safe to say that when you were in the military, working with the people you were working with, it's literally sometimes life and death. And there's a certain way that you have to lead. But a lot of that is not necessarily transferable when you're working with people in the church. You have to have a certain level of emotional intelligence, and you can't be as rigid, or you can't lead with such sense of urgency. Although in the spiritual realm, it is life and death. But I'm just wondering, was there any type of deprogramming, if I could use that word, that you had to do mentally so that you can shift to a different audience?
I'm going to just say, I don't appreciate you talking to my wife before this. Because I'll be, I came in, before I became the pastor, I was like minister of music. And when it came to music, it was no nonsense. And
Right.
my wife would often tell me, excuse me, but you're not Chief Williams here. I'm like, what do you mean? If I say go, you go. You come, you come. You know. So yes, I had to do some serious deprogramming. Now, in the military, a lot of my mentees would say that was great when it came to emotional intelligence, even though that was not the buzzword back then.
Yeah.
I believe in taking care of people. We were all about being servant leaders. At least I was. Coming into church, it was like, what's wrong with these people? 7:30 means 7:15, not 7:35.
Dang.
You know what I'm saying?
And you church
world.
people, they can linger.
Oh, God. And so once again, instead of me saying, Lord, change these people, it was most like, okay, help me understand what are you doing in me.
Respect that. Right.
So I had to change my perspective when dealing with people. But if I can say this, here it is. I'm the senior pastor of a church. I'm the executive director of the Christian Activity Center, the vice president of the greatest fraternity in the world, Alpha Phi Alpha fraternity. 3 leadership roles. I'm consistent as to who I am in those 3 leadership roles. But my audiences are so different. So different. So I have to learn how to navigate through those different cultures.
Okay.
That's another story for another day. But to answer your original question, in my opinion, I'm not as rigid.
You get softened up a little bit. So let's talk a little bit about recalibration, because you just mentioned the 3 different roles that you're in, right? Member Alpha
Phi Alpha.
Alpha Phi Alpha. You're a minister, you're a pastor at your church.
Yeah.
Retired military, but then you also are the executive director of a Christian Activity Center. Different hats, right?
Yes.
So coming from being an entrepreneur, coming straight out the gate from the military, how do you feel like recalibration helped you adjust to these roles? Or do you think about that at all?
Well, these roles made me realize I needed to recalibrate, because I am at these high levels and all these entities. I was tired, burned out, always pouring into people. Then when no one's around, I go into my little private place. Sometimes I feel depressed, overwhelmed, worn out. There were times when tears would just be flowing. Nobody's around, because it was always, I need. What about me? What about me? What about me? Then I'm looking like, well, what about me?
Right.
But I can't say that in front of the people. And so that was really the genesis behind me starting a men's breakfast. It's a monthly breakfast where other leaders, other people who were like-minded, who were dealing with the same issues. Okay. I'm all these things, plus I'm a father, a grandfather, a brother, a son. I'm so many things, like most men. Instead of resorting to drinking or drugs, I what can I do? I pray, I ask God. All these things were going on. And that's when I realized something has to give, because I was really drifting off my purpose. And that's when I realized I needed to recalibrate, get back on course.
I'm so happy that you touched on that you had a stint of depression. And I want to know from you, what would you say to that person who's going through a stint of depression and not able to realize that, but also to give them permission because a lot of people, unfortunately, if we're being frank, they will take a different route. Like they will take their life into their own hands because they feel like there's no other options, when actually you can recalibrate, you can reinvent yourself, you can refresh, you can start over. So what would you say to that person who is in that state of depression about giving themselves permission to start over?
Oh, just that. Just tell them that. I'm going to go to our breakfast. One time we had a breakfast, and, I lead the breakfast. I'm in charge of that as well. And I told them, I said, I really don't want to be here today.
Mm.
Not realizing that it would touch the hearts that it did. Because again, they looked at me as the man with the cape, Superman, all this him, he got it all together. Every day is sunny outside for him. I'm like, it's not. I feel safe enough to let you all know that I am worn out. And so it gave them permission to say, me too. Because men in general, we don't like to just share our hearts. We don't want to appear weak. But in this case, being able to say those things really make you look strong.
Right.
It really does. And once I was able to let that out, I started feeling better. I started getting back slowly but surely to my due north. It wasn't there overnight, but at least I had somebody I could just pick up the phone and call who can pour back into me. And so I would let men know, find that one person who will listen to you. We just want somebody to listen. They may not be able to fix the problem,
Right?
But knowing that somebody can say, "I hear you. I may not be able to give you everything you need, but I'm here for you," and for someone like me, that's huge.
Yeah, I don't think people realize how important that is. I don't know. Are you familiar with Thule Air Force Base?
Yes.
So I was stationed out there, right? We only had one chief out there. And I remember somebody said to me, man, it must be tough for him to be here because nobody here will ever call him by his first name. You know what I'm saying? I was like, I ain't think about that. I was like, man, yeah, he's chief to everybody out here. There's nobody here that his peer or anything like that. So who does he talk to out here on this lonely island that's, you know what I'm saying, secluded? So I really commend that you put together a breakfast for people that are leaders in their field, because a lot of times leaders don't have that person to talk to. And nobody really thinks about that. Like, who does Dr. Williams talk to? Does he even need to talk to anybody? That's Dr. Chief Williams. He ain't got no problems. Money pouring in for him. That man got it all.
Doctor and pastor, right?
Doctor, pastor, executive director, so it's like when you come across a person that may be in your same shoes, right? And you don't know where they really at. Do you feel like, hey, it's up to you to extend that hand out to them? Like, hey, I know you might be going through some things and I'm here to talk to you.
Yeah. I mean, it doesn't take a lot for me to just get my energy back up. I'll give you a perfect example. I'm not saying this because he's part of this program, but Seth is one of those guys I can pick up the phone and say, Seth, can I be Jeff with one F? That's how I spell my name, J-E-F. That's how I abbreviate it. And when I say that, he knows what I'm talking about. No titles, no positions. Can I just be Jeff? And I feel as though when I talk to someone like Seth, I have several people I can talk to like that, but he's local. I can reach out and touch him real quick. It's refreshing. Does it change the problem? No, it's just the fact that I can talk about it.
Right.
And I feel as though I'm going crazy. And so what was your initial question again? I'm sorry.
It's like, how do you recognize that in somebody else?
Okay. I can see it. It's a part of that gift of discernment. You can see it all over a person's face. I saw one time we had a breakfast, and the brother, he didn't glow and radiate like he normally does. and I was just keeping my eye on them. I was able to take whatever I was going through, sit it on the back shelf, because what he was going through was more important at the moment. But I said, come here, let's talk. What do you mean? Let's talk. I'm listening. Go for it. Now, what's so ironic is our breakfast is like from 9:30 till 11. 9 times out of 10, brothers, when I say brothers, I mean men, because it's multicultural. They don't leave until 12, sometimes 1 o'clock, because they're still talking and fellowshipping. And I couldn't wait to get here.
Right.
And so I'm standing in a corner sometimes watching what's going on in the room. But I can easily see who is struggling. It's like, okay, how can we help this person? And that's, it's a beautiful thing.
As the lady of the bunch amongst all of my male co-hosts, I just want to ask, as partners, all of the wives out there, the girlfriends, what could they be doing better to make the space comfortable for you men to be able to share?
That's a good
I'm just
question.
curious, because I know that you do wear so many hats and you have so many titles. What can women be doing differently to make the space open? Because I know that's very difficult at times for, males to do. And I know that women have a tendency to always push back or always want to have a comeback or have something to say. What could they be doing differently?
Well, I recall when we first started our breakfast, it was like my wife this, my significant other this. It was just like, okay, we cannot continue to go down this path about our wives. Now, it was a common theme, unfortunately, is her inability or unwillingness to listen. Some people listen to be heard, so they can be, what's the word? They don't listen to understand. They just listen to respond. And that's a problem. Same thing with men. Sometimes men get to do the same thing. I'm not going to say it's just a woman thing. I just think it's human nature. But I think women, especially, I would say learn to listen. Don't attack. Don't expect perfection out of your husbands or your boyfriends, whatever, because we're still trying to figure this thing called life out as well. That's what I would say, because that's the.
If I can also ask Herm, because I feel like this is an important question. If you want to also tell us, ladies, what we could be doing differently, if you have anything to add to that, because I've seen you leaning back like, yes, that.
Man. Just make me a ham sandwich every now and then. You know what I mean? Just don't talk too much. You know what I mean? And I'll be fine. You know what I mean? Just, I ain't. No, I'm just playing. With a lot of times with your woman, man. I feel like women always look at you also as the person that's supposed to be strong. And so they don't understand that. Well, I'm not going to say that, but sometimes a man needs to be vulnerable, and who else would I be vulnerable with besides the woman that I'm laying next to, right?
Yeah, but if I'm being vulnerable with the woman I'm laying next to, and she somehow or another later on down the road uses it against me,
boom,
then I don't want to talk to you.
That's it.
Because I don't trust you.
That's it. Because a man cannot take. We already don't want to talk about our vulnerabilities, right? And as soon as we do and we start to feel safe, you take that from us, it's going to be hard for a man to trust that space again. That's how I see it.
And I think the challenge, and one of the things we also talk about is, and I'll talk more about talk about it on the recalibration conference. As men, we are given this responsibility, provide a protector, and everything else that comes with it. And so when we out there in the world having to deal with the issues of life in the world, and then we come home, it's like, can I get a breather? Can I get a 30-minute breather before I start dealing with the home issues? Before I start, being daddy, being husband. Now, that may not be able to happen. You may have to take that break on your drive home because she's working. Sometimes if she's not working, she's at home. Being a mom is a full-time job, a parent, especially if you're a working mom, if you're both working. And so somehow or another, you have to figure out, okay, how can we help each other?
Right.
Because you cannot negate your duties as a husband. She still have needs that she needs to get from you.
Right.
Just because you worked hard and you got all these issues to deal with, you still got to take care of her. So how do we do that? And that's some of the things we hope to figure out at our conference. How do we recalibrate so we can be all that we need to be to everybody and still not go crazy?
Okay. Well, speaking of that, so when should somebody know that it's time for recalibration? And on top of that, how does one recalibrate?
Okay, you will know it's time to recalibrate. From a physical standpoint, you're tired, grumpy, depressed. You just lost interest. Those are just some of the symptoms.
All right.
It is time to recalibrate, get back to your purpose. You have no enjoyment of what you're doing. It's like, okay, what am I doing? Why am I here? You're confused. You're chasing after all these shiny objects. Anybody familiar with that?
Hey, man, you been talking to Seth about me? What's going on?
Yeah, you try to do everything and be everything for everybody. You cannot say no. That means, okay, that's a problem. You got to recalibrate. And when I say recalibrate, you got to change the way you think so you get back to what you really know your purpose to be. Because if not, all these things are going to pull you away. They're going to pull you away from your due north, your purpose. So when you feel yourself, experiencing those things, it's like, okay, time out, red light. What's going on here? If not, you will go into depression, and that's not a fun place to be.
Right. So how should somebody start to take steps to recalibrate? What should they be looking to do?
Well, first and foremost, is recognition. Find somebody you can talk to. That's why I have this this fellowship I have for men, because the truth be told, you just can't talk to any and everybody because everybody cannot understand. Sometimes when we as leaders and sometimes as men come together, we can relate better. Now, initially, like I said, it was for men who were like in leadership roles, had huge responsibilities, had no one to talk to. That's who it was designed for, because I have police, law enforcement people, I have clergy, I have engineers, I have educators, you name it, different group of people in the room. All of them carry huge responsibilities, whether it's being a husband, a father, executive director, CEO, or whatever. And as you're listening to what they're saying, it's like, okay, we need to help you. The first thing is for you to be able to share exactly what you're going through. What are you experiencing? Because we cannot treat what we don't know. You go to the doctor, they'll ask you about your symptoms, right? Before they give you medicine, I hope. And so that's how we are, even in our men's breakfast. We just listen to each other in a non-judgmental way.
Okay.
And then at the breakfast, we'll provide spiritual medicine from a biblical perspective. That's the breakfast. Now, at the men's conference, it's not a Christian conference. It's a conference for men. It just happened to be that some of us are Christian men who were putting it on.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
It does.
Because we want people to come. We're not trying to get you to come to a church conference. We just want you to come because we need to help you.
I actually like that you also said that, because it's a good segue into my question, which was, this is basically an open all. It's not a Christian conference per se. Although many of us who attend are Christians, this is not a Christian conference. But I do also know that there's a conversation that happens oftentimes about religion versus spirituality. And I just want people to make the correlation that if you are not anchored in something, if you don't have like a spiritual walk, something that's covering you and anchoring you, then you will find yourself sometimes in these state of depressions, or you will find yourself just, walking aimlessly and not having anything to keep you together when you are met with adversity. So why is spirituality important? Especially for those people who believe, I think I'm more spiritual than religious. Why is spirituality at the very least important?
Yeah, it's interesting because that both terms are so subjective in how you look at it and how you define it. When people ask me how am I able to recalibrate, it's based on my faith in Christ. And that's my solution. I can share that with you. It's up to you whether or not you want to try it for yourself. When I think of religion, I think of rules, regulations. I think of the law, legalism, things like that. Spirituality, that's a term that I'm still trying to grapple with, but it's something that I live because I know I'm a spiritual being. Okay. And sometimes it's hard to explain it to people. And so I'm still, trying to put it in terms where a third grader can understand. And that's a lot of time when I'm preaching from the pulpit, I try to preach at a certain level so everybody can understand. It's a difference between being, for example, in the Christian faith, we who worship God, we worship him in spirit and truth. So what does that look like? I have to break it down with a spirit. Okay, faith is spirit, love is spirit, and things like that. It's not about how many times you go to church or how many times you miss church. That's religion. Mm-hmm. And so when I talk about recalibrate, my faith, my trust, my strength comes from God. I can explain it like that. And so the reason why I don't make this a religious conference, because I want every man to be able to come through the door. Some people, that's a church conference, I'm not invited. No, it's not a church conference. I've been to a lot of them. They're very religious.
Got you. So talking about this conference and recalibration conference, I know it first started off, from my understanding, from your monthly breakfast, and then you felt the need to put this on. Can you walk us through the beginning steps of what, how it looked for how you to get this set up?
Good question. I laugh every time I think about it. Years ago, I had an individual, a good friend of mine. She had, a gift of a prophecy. And she told me, I see you standing in front of a large group of men. That was years ago. I was like, yeah, sure. So I started doing this breakfast, then started growing and growing and growing. And then I knew in my heart what my call was when it came to men. And it was really to just be a source of encouragement, support for men. Because oftentimes we have a lot of things for women, infant, and children, WIC. But there are some men who still need, some good men who need help. So I was focusing on that lane. And so I had this in my spirit for many years. And I was afraid to open my mouth because if I did, I was going to be held accountable to make it happen.
Boy.
And those who know me, sometimes they know that I can sometimes just do things on my own because I don't have time for people complaining, telling me why they can't do something. So I just get it done. But this was something really huge. So at one of the breakfasts, I put it out there in the atmosphere. And I said, I'm saying this to you men so you all can hold me accountable to get this done. I didn't know who was going to be on the team because at the men's breakfast, the last thing I wanted to do, and I keep telling brothers, when you come here, I am not going to put another tasking on you. I'm not going to ask you to be going out to the neighborhoods and mentoring. I said, no, this is the time for you to refresh. So I put it out there, and then God put in my heart to call this one guy, Dr. Josh, my chiropractor, because his energy is so contagious. And then he said, find one petty person. So I chose Seth. He can't come at me right now. No, Seth was oh man, he's a godsend. I was like, I learned so much from Seth. His energy just makes me get out of bed. It's like, okay, Jeff, you can do it. You can do it. And so when I mentioned it to him, he said, "Of course." I was like, "Really?"
Yeah. That sounds like him.
I was like, you going to help me? And Josh was like, "Yeah, Pastor Jeff, we going to help you." I mean, I'm like, "Oh." And so they became part of the planning group. I had the vision, and then they were just giving me feedback and information. And that's how it just became this conference. The organization is called the Men's Retreat.
Okay.
The name of this conference, the theme of the conference is recalibration. Time to recalibrate. And it's going to be the first of many to come. We'll do some small things quarterly, hopefully. But that's how it came. This piece came together. Phenomenal planners, organizers. When it comes to marketing, I mean, the team was there, and God just reminded me, "I got your back, Jeff. I got people strategically placed to help carry out this vision." And Seth and Josh were two of those individuals.
Oh.
So this is the inaugural conference. Okay,
Yes.
Awesome. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Absolutely. So after you recalibrate, and I know we have a lot more conversation left, but after you recalibrate, how do you maintain that? Like what are the things that you help people to, or help these men? What will be the things you implement or tell them to just stay on track after you've got to the conference, you have this high, you have a lot of momentum. What's the next step after recalibrating?
Well, it's about accountability. For example, some of the things we're going to cover during the conference, we're going to give them some tools to take with them. We're going to talk about the mental piece. It's the acronym MANLY. It's the mental piece, accountability. Then we have nutrition. That's the fitness portion. We're going to do some fun stuff when it comes to fitness. Then you have the leadership. As men, we have this mantle upon us for leadership, whatever it may look like. And then the why it's important to recalibrate. So I'll open the conference with the why, and then we'll deal with the other subjects. So after the conference, we're going to continue to have different ways that the men can keep in touch with us. We continue to pour into them, check on them. Again, accountability is key because it doesn't take much for you to go off center again. Be one little thing. If it's just a small deviation, you can still be off course. And so we don't just encourage one time. It's a continuous cycle of encouragement.
Right.
Continuous, for sure.
So it's all about the follow-up.
Yes. We can have high days, but next day can be very low. We can forget everything we said about it. We can forget everything we learned at the conference. But sometimes we just need those little reminders. Let's say, "You're right. Let me get back up on the horse here and keep moving." Okay.
So ultimately, what is the for you to consider this a success? I hate to say it like that, you know what I'm saying? Because how do you gauge success in a venture like this?
True.
But for you to look back at him like, you know what? Yeah, we did something good here. What are some of the things that you're looking forward to seeing happen with this?
That's a good question. Don't want to sound cliche-ish, but I want to see stronger men. Okay. I'm not talking about physical strength, but mental strength. Because again, our responsibility as a man does not go away just because we don't want it anymore. You can walk into a room and people expect certain things of you as a man. Right. But I want them to know that they don't have to be afraid. It's okay to have a rough day, but it's not okay to stay there. But I don't know. That's a good question. Be better role models for both, not just our young people, but just for people around us. Mm-hmm. Always watching us, always under the microscope. And so for this particular group, I just want to encourage to keep going. To be steadfast, unmovable.
Got you.
Always abounding in the work of the Lord, because the labor is not in vain.
Absolutely. It's tough to gauge what would be considered success at a venture like this, because especially the first one, you really don't know what you're going to get.
Yeah.
You know, but I would have figured that the people that are signing up for this are really searching for something.
Yeah.
Like they're at a point in their life, they're like, you know what, I need something to get me turned around. You know, so if there's somebody watching this right now and they're like, is this for me? What would you tell that person to, you know, kind of have them consider that this is for them?
I think it's like on the flyer. I told Seth, I need on the flyer something that when a person looks at the flyer, they'll say, this is for me, because it's you're tired, lost, trying to figure it out, things like that. If people can say yes to those questions, then this is for them. And going back to your other question, what would make this a success? If the attendees leave saying, I needed this, I want more, I'll be back. That to me would be a success. That would be a success.
I want to preface by saying that I don't want to derail the conversation, but if I got on the women, I want to get on the men for just a moment. I think a big part of the miscommunication and the breakdown of the Black family has a lot to do with, we understand the prison system, we understand the school to prison pipeline, we get all of that, but a lot of men are not, going back to that accountability piece, they're not present, and they're not there for their young men, and they don't gird their young men and raise them up. So what would you say just about the breakdown of the Black family in general and the responsibility of men to just go back to being leaders of the household?
Well, that's a very good question. Because in some of the workshops to follow, we will address some of those issues. I believe you have to ask the question, why are you absent? Why are you absent?
Right.
Because there's some stuff going on that's causing a person to be absent, to be afraid, to own up to this responsibility, whatever the case may be. And so I will start there. So we can easily say, hey, you have to be present, but some don't know how to be present.
And whenever
physically there, but they're not mentally or spiritually present. So How do we address that? How do we deal with the emotional intelligence, the social emotional learning? And so that's a lot. And I say that because I mentor some grown men in that regard. They may not be able to handle the conversations we have at my men's breakfast because the topic is totally different. Mm-hmm. But this is a different group altogether. And so Seth and myself and Dr. Josh, we got to come up with a plan. How do we address this group? So once we deal with this, they can graduate to the next level. But you're right. I see a lot of, and I'll say this, I have one mentee went through a divorce. And the first thing they were thinking, I'm gonna just let her have custody. Absolutely not. Mm-hmm. You have a joint, if anything, because these babies need you present physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually in their lives. I'm sorry it's going to make you uncomfortable. However, this is what you need to do. That's the conversation I had with my mentee. I can't let you just think it's okay just to give money to your mama. No, that's not it. So just having those honest conversations is one way. But what do you do when you have a person who's 50 years old?
Man, for real.
Who's been living a certain way all their lives? There's so much unpacking to do. It's like, good Lord, my PhD is in organizational management, not psychology or psychiatry. But it's a lot. That's a great question. And at our breakfast, it's not about women bashing. Always come back. Let's look in the mirror. What are we doing and not doing?
It is.
Because it's not always them.
Right. Yeah. You got to look at what you can control.
Oh, yeah. Because some guys, get the bash. It's like, time out, stop, wait a minute. No, we're not doing that.
So you just perfect in this world. No, there's no problem with you. It's everybody else.
What could you have done different?
Right.
How can you understand her better? Because we all communicate differently, correct?
Mm-hmm.
And I know forgiveness is also an important piece too.
Yes.
Learning to forgive yourself for making those decisions because you didn't have the tools or the resources, or maybe your father wasn't present. But also, like, not forgiving yourself will also create that wedge because you're like formulating all of these things in your head, thinking ahead and creating a deeper wedge from your family, from your children, whatever the case. So just learning to forgive yourself, and children learning to forgive your parents. And I've had to do that. I'm in that phase now where now that I have kids, life has come full circle. So I appreciate my mom more. And I was just having a conversation with some girlfriends in virtual Bible study yesterday. My dad was not present my entire life, not active, physically involved, but for the one time he came to rekindle, and he came to Washington State to be with me and meet his grandson for the first time. I'm grateful for that. And I didn't hold any grudges. I just welcomed him with open arms. And I'm grateful because not even a year later would he pass away, the day after my son's first birthday. So when you don't have forgiveness in your heart, imagine had I not forgiven him and then lose him, what I would be living with, had I not just been open and understanding and know that whatever he went through, it had to be deep for him to create such a wedge. So just learning to forgive. Children, forgive your parents.
Yeah.
Parents, forgive yourselves.
That's key. And that's part of the recalibration too. That's why some men are off course, because of issues like that they're dealing with. It blows my mind, some of the things that I encounter. I'm not saying my life was so easy and smooth, but it was not as traumatic as some of these individuals I deal with.
Right.
We deal a lot with kids, ACEs. I don't know if you're familiar with that, adverse childhood experiences. And then it's like, okay, they grow up to be adults, still dealing with ACEs.
Yeah.
And so I had to be very careful about what we take on in this particular organization, the men's retreat. Right now is focusing on the recalibration piece for this particular population of men.
Yeah. Some people need extensive therapy.
Right.
That's right.
And that may not be where
not going to heal everything.
So I had to be careful not to try to do everything, because what happens, this particular group that I'm dealing with now, they're overlooked.
Absolutely. I love the fact that you said it like that. And it's not that, like you said, the people that need extensive therapy stuff is not important, because yes, it's very important. But you're focusing on people that's more, you know what I'm saying, in your realm, as far as people that might just need a little help recalibrate and get their mind right to move forward. Correct me if I'm wrong, Dr. Williams.
No, you are correct.
Yeah. So it's like, a lot of times with a lot of these organizations, they want to take on everybody. And when you take on the real troubled issues, the people that came in just for the help, that thought they was about to recalibrate and refocus, how can you focus on them when this person is dealing with some real trauma?
Yeah. What about the CEO who decides to take his life?
Right.
They think because he's the CEO, everything has to be great in his world.
Absolutely.
So I want to be able to reach those who are in this particular area. Again, when God allows me to minister to people who are dealing with drug addiction and whatever types of addiction and traumas, okay. But right now it's over here.
Got you.
So I have to learn, I have to make sure I identify my lane, because I love being all over the place.
Yeah.
I do. That's probably what drains me.
Kind of want to just try to help everybody, but man, hey, Dr. Williams, I really appreciate you coming on. We're about to wrap up. Danny, you got any final words for Dr. Williams in the audience before we roll?
Yeah, I just thank you so much for, again, being here today and sharing with us. I hope that your last question will be just the CTA, who is invited to come and how people can get connected. So I hope that's what's next. But thank you again, Dr. Williams, for being on the stage with us.
Thank you. I really appreciate the opportunity. Really.
And Dr. Williams, Again, I knew this show was going to be a great one, and I appreciate the work that you're doing. Appreciate your service and the work that you continue to do for the community and the people around you. I know that, you know, this with your recalibration conference that you got coming up, you're hitting on the right target, and I'm looking for great things from it. Hopefully, I'll be able to get to come to it.
That'd be
I'm
great.
gonna try to make that happen. But I'm gonna give you the floor for your final words, and like Danny said, hopefully you give a little bit more information about it.
Okay, again, the Men's Recalibration Conference will take place Saturday, September the 28th in East St. Louis, Illinois. It is open to this initial conference. This is our inaugural conference. It's open to all men ages 18 and over. So come. We got a great lineup of speakers for you. We have our very own Seth will be speaking. Another Chief Master Sergeant Nathan Jackson. We have Jeremy Wiley, Dr. Josh Farrell. Great lineup of speakers who will give you practical advice and, you know, tools that you can use so you can continue to do the job that you've been called to do. So we're really excited about it, looking forward to it. And again, let your friends know about it.
Mm-hmm.
We're here to make a difference in your life. That's what we're here to do.
So we're going to go ahead and have the information for the conference posted to our page. And I want to thank everybody that watched with us today. Let me do myself. Let me get myself impersonation on. Make sure y'all stay cheesy and greasy. Right on. Right on. Peace, y'all.